I want to bring in someone who I have admired for decades. Someone who has been a confidant to me, someone who I admire. He's a Rhodes Scholar. He's amazing. He's the former mayor of Baltimore. He was the former dean of Howard University's law school, where Thurgood Marshall attended. And he's also the outgoing president of the University of Baltimore. I want to bring to you none other than Kurt L. Schmoke. Hello, sir. How are
How are
you?
you? How are you, April? It's so great. I'm honored to be on your program.
I'm honored to have you yet
Well,
again.
you do such a good job. I tell you, when I say to people that there are folks out there that still understand freedom of speech, freedom of the press, and everything, you're a prime example of that. And I
Thank you.
really so proud that you're from our hometown
That's
and
right.
you continue to fight the good fight.
Thank you. We have to be contrarians in this moment. And, really, to be honest with you, I think you were one of the first contrarians that I really took note of. I remember in the 80s when you went before Congress trying to deal with this drug issue
Yeah.
in a medical way. So we wouldn't have this situation now. But we are in such a situation now. I need you, because you used to work in the Carter administration. Please compare and contrast yesterday to today and these other administrations that you've seen, because
Sure.
this is an aberration, but it's re I don't want to believe it's real, but it
No, but
is.
you really hit the nail on the head with your comment about Congress. The biggest difference, well, let me put it this way. Trump is Trump. He's the same guy that we saw, in the first administration. It's just that you have total capitulation by those in Congress, and we've never seen anything like that. I mean, the Constitution, the power, for example, on tariffs is in the Constitution, supposed to be by the Congress, but they're just letting the president run wild, and it was, of course, the Supreme Court that had to put the brakes on that.
Yeah.
But that's just one example of I've never seen a situation where can you imagine, from time to time, I look at this Congress and I say, can you imagine if Obama had done that? What they would be going out of their mind if he had taken a plane from Qatar or if he had had $1 billion in crypto that he earned. I mean, it's extraordinary. So I'm saying Trump is Trump. He was the same person when he came down the elevator, I mean the escalator, as he is now. But he has people that are supporting him, enablers. These are the most amazing enablers that I've ever seen in a Congress.
Yeah, and you said, what if Obama had done this? You know what I keep thinking? What they tried to do to Mike Pence on January 6th. That's what I'm thinking they would have done to Obama. And I'm
Yeah.
I'm I'm leaving it there. I'm leaving it there. So listen, I'm going to our Instagram comment and chat. Jack says, what are your thoughts on Major Jason Watson, the U.S. service member arrested on the steps of the Capitol after calling for Trump's impeachment? He had a right to do that, but he's suffering the consequences. What do you think, sir, legally and
Absolutely.
constitutionally?
No, I mean, we had the right to speak up, to raise our voice. I mean, we just saw recently a situation in D.C. where a guy got arrested just for walking behind the National Guard and playing music from Star Wars,
Mm.
but he fortunately had the case dismissed. He's suing various organizations. We have to recognize, as you said earlier, we still have power. And it's not only the power to vote, but it's the power to use the courts because
Yes.
overall, these guys have been overstepping their bounds, and there are avenues for redress, and I think we ought to pursue them.
Yeah, and legally using the courts. And the Supreme Court ended its session yesterday. And, we had several key cases, particularly that are close to the contrarian itself. Our organization, Norm Eisen, who's the publisher, he had three in the last 2 days of the court. He had three major cases. He had Lisa Cook. He won that. He also won the Mississippi mail-in ballot case, and he also won the Birthright Citizenship case. What do you say about this? In this time when Trump is trying to intimidate the court, he went to the court. We never saw it before. He went to the
Right.
court to intimidate the justices on birthright citizenship, which should have never even gone to the court because it's rational. it's what it is. You're born here, you should be here.
Well, it's also amazing that the case actually came down to a 6-3 vote. I mean, it should have been 9-0. I mean,
Right.
the issue there is been in the Constitution since the 14th Amendment was ratified. So it's just amazing to me. But I'm just pleased that there are lawyers and folks who support the law that will continue to fight. Even though sometimes you think that the Supreme Court is going the other way and trying to align itself with MAGA. But I
Yeah.
think generally, lawyers, the courts are still an avenue for us to pursue. And I think where Keith Ellison is showing is that the state court is also an avenue, because if these guys violate state law, as they did, for example, in what ICE agents did to those people in Minnesota and shooting them, those are state violations. So go after them in state courts and not just the federal courts.
Yeah, Keith Ellison, the state attorney general in Minnesota, said of the birthright citizenship case, he said, "I'm glad and grateful to the justices who rejected Trump's hate and xenophobia and refused to let them turn citizenship into a weapon. But we cannot ignore that this episode revealed we have a president who would strip birthright Americans of their constitutionality, guaranteed citizenship if the court would let him."
Well,
That's a
he'll
real.
continue to pursue it. I mean, I know that, or at least I read that he's asked the Justice Department to look at people that are coming in the United States and having babies here just in order to get citizenship rights. But I don't think that's the most appropriate use of Justice
Yeah,
Department resources. I'd like them to do more in civil rights than
yeah.
they've been
How
able to
about
do.
that? How about that? He's a vengeful man. He's even, look, Lisa Cook can keep her job, but he still wants to go after her. And that's crazy. But getting back onto the topic of people coming into this country, listen to this. Data provided by the U.S. Department of State Bureau of Population, Refugees, and Migration Refugee Case Management System. I said this yesterday. I got the paperwork from the Trump State Department. From October 1, 2025 through May 31st, 2026, there's a grand total of 6,668 white South African refugees coming into this country, but yet you want to kick out people who look like you and I. It's crazy.
Well, look, you got to call it what it is. It's just plain racist, is what
Come
it
on.
is. And I think a lot of people are understanding that. But he will continue. I mean, unfortunately, with the temporary status now of Haitians and others and the Syrians being in jeopardy, you're going to see a lot of people who are just worried day to day about whether they're going to be able to continue the lifestyle that they've had. So it is an awful thing that's being done, and the racism is so evident.
Preach. So I'm going back to the chat, and you would like this. Kendra said Jimmy Carter sold his peanut farm before taking office for his crying out loud exclamation point. And there was a big flap when his brother had a beer business. And then
That's
look
right.
at this. Look at this.
Well,
Oh
just
my
think about what they did to Hunter Biden. I mean, they were going after him for
yeah,
his relationship with a company in Ukraine, and now
yeah.
you've got the Trump brothers and Jared around there cutting deals on behalf of the Trump family. It really is extraordinary what the Congress is turning a blind eye to. And but look, the voters have an opportunity in November to start making some change, and I think they will.
It's almost as if they're mad because they didn't get to it first and did it worse. I don't know. It's just crazy, but that's a whole nother thing. Cecilia says, April Ryan and the Contrarians are my lifelines at this time. They tell me the truth and give me hope. I rely on these truth tellers. Thank you. Thank you, Cecilia. Celia, I'm sorry. Thank you, Celia. That's important. And I'm so thankful to have President Kurt L. Schmoke, the former mayor of Baltimore. I cut my news teeth in Baltimore in the 80s when he was mayor. Yes, I did. And I remember that's when we got the Ravens. Remember? We got the Ravens. I remember all that we were going to Chicago to find out. We don't even want to talk about what happened with the other team. That's a whole nother conversation.
Well, we're just glad that the NFL gave Cleveland a team because my friends around Cleveland wouldn't talk to me for a while until they
That
got a
was a
team
bitter
installed.
battle. That was a bitter. Art Modell could not even go back there. That was such a bitter battle. It was so passionate. But let's talk about passion in this moment, sir. Let's talk about passion. Can you give us a look practically and legally as to what 250 is to this nation? It's
Yeah,
250th anniversary, the anniversary of the Declaration of Independence, 1776, when the 13 colonies were pulling away from King George, the British rule.
right.
Practically and legally, what is it to you?
Well, the one thing, April, is that I do remember that my ancestors were picking cotton for free when for the founding fathers when they were signing that declaration, and it's very important for people to remember. And I hate the fact that the Trump administration is trying to erase that part of history. It when you look at how America became such a powerful economic force in the world, it had to do with King Cotton, and King Cotton was being picked by our ancestors for free. So those things have to be remembered. But again, looking over the course of history, and I was a history major in college, and so I try to take the long view of things. And right now, I'm pleased that in this country I'm able to do the types of things that you described, about the kind of opportunities. And although I'm a Democrat, April, one of the things I'm actually really proud of is that I serve on the board of the Calvin Coolidge Presidential Foundation. We,
Wow.
one of the real hidden things people forget, Calvin Coolidge back in 1924 really stood up against the Ku Klux Klan, and he was responsible for the appropriation that created Howard University's multiple programs. The university, got started right after the Civil War, but it didn't get a major investment, the kind of ongoing allocation that it has now until Calvin Coolidge came into office. So here's a Republican president back in 1924 fighting the Klan, helping out Howard University, speaking up for black soldiers who he said fought honorably in World War One. You think about that. That's the kind of country that we'd like to see, not the kind of bitter partisanship that is being conveyed right now. So in the long run, I think we'll be okay. But right now, we've got a tough hill to climb.
We sure do. And I believe one of our founding fathers also happened to be a man named Frederick Douglass.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yes, yes. And he talked about, and we're going to go further into it a little later on in the show, but in 1852, he was asked to speak, and he said, "What is July 4th to the slave?" And we talked to Professor Eddie Glaude. Yes, we
Right.
talked to Professor Eddie Glaude to find out a little bit more about that. Team play, Eddie, please.
Yeah, I mean, this is the decade of the 1850s. And we have to deal with the fact that the country had just been made a country populated by fugitives and slave catchers because of the violence precipitated with the passage of the Fugitive Slave Law of 1850. And that decade, of course, is the decade that slavery, or the issue of slavery, brought the nation to, I guess you would say, Americans to each other's throats. People had to make choices. Were you going to identify with the slaveholding regime of the South, or were you going to embrace the idea of freedom itself? So the 1850s is the run-up to the first, cannon shot in the Civil War, as it were. Douglass is speaking in the midst of that moment because he himself had to become a fugitive. He had to leave the
Mm.
country once the Fugitive Slave Law was passed in 1850. And in this moment, he's saying, well, what does all of this mean to us? You're talking about America, as this shining light of freedom, as this city on the hill. That doesn't matter. He said to us, it's a sham, right?
Mm.
That you have this serpent at the end of that speech coiled up in the bosom of the nation. And let's be clear, too, April, July 5th, even though it wasn't the occasion in 1852, July 5th has always been a significant day in African American history because July 5th represents the abolition of slavery in the state of New York. We used to celebrate July 5th like we celebrated like we celebrate Juneteenth, like we celebrated August 1st, like we celebrated January 1st, because we had an alternative commemorative calendar to celebrate freedom of a different order. So Douglass was speaking in that tradition in that moment to call attention to the hypocrisy of the nation.
Ooh, the hypocrisy of the nation. The hypocrisy of the nation. I mean, it almost, if you turn your head, close your eye, you think you might be looking at a sepia tone picture of 1852 almost, because that's what some of these things that they're trying to do and repeal go back to the Civil War. Am I right, sir?
Oh, absolutely. And one congressman here in Maryland, Andy Harris, just recently proposed repealing the 17th Amendment, which, allows for direct election of senators. And he wanted it to go back to having state legislatures select the senators. Well, when you look around the country and you see how many legislatures are dominated by Republicans, you can imagine why they want to get rid of direct election. So yeah, this is an administration and a majority in Congress that you could basically see their hands turning back the clock and back to an era where we were definitely second-class citizens.
And I want to go to AJ. AJ's comment to you. He says, what had been the Department of Justice is now the Department of Revenge, Retribution, and Intimidation. AJ says also, AJ North says, alas, as William Faulkner wrote in his last novel, The Past is Never Dead. It's not even
Even
past.
the past, right?
Yeah. Requiem
Absolutely.
for a Nun, 1951.
Well, we're a young nation, and that's why, so much when we talk about things that are impacting us, you can look back 50, 60, almost 100 years and say that's still an issue for us. So, race continues to be the difficult issue for the country to address. But, you know, I just continue to say to people, we have power and
Yeah.
we should exercise it.
Where are you going to be on the 4th? In
Uh,
Maryland or somewhere? Somewhere
yeah, well,
cool, air
see,
conditioned?
my governor is also issuing delivering a speech, so I think I'm going to listen to him more than I
Oh,
listen to the chief executive.
that governor happens to be Wes Moore. I get it. I get it. He's been someone, he's been on Contrarian. He's come on our show several times. Actually, he's gone viral, so we may get him back soon. But President Schmoke, Mayor Schmoke, Dean Schmoke, everything, Rhodes Scholar Schmoke, everything.
Well, thank you,
Thank,
April.
thank you. I mean, it's an honor.
Well, you just continue doing what you're doing. We're proud of you, and I know that you'll continue to make the whole nation proud.
You know what? You have been the wind beneath my wings because there have been times when people have tried to come at me and you like, look, guys, this is one of the people who I go to for advice. And he's like, look, this is what you got to do. And no emotion in it. See, that's what lawyers will tell you. No emotion, just boom, boom, boom. Right? Just boom, boom, boom. And I've survived. And look, I've survived the attacks and the presidential attacks. And I
Right,
thank you for continuing to stand by me, you and your wife and your family, and just have a great holiday weekend. Stay cool
right,
while you're watching Wes Moore. But
right.
I want to say this to you. Athena from the chat says there were more protesters on the mall at every protest than there were getting collectively for this crap. So they're saying there were more protesters, counter protesters to Trump on the mall, always. So anyway,
No, you know what he's probably going to do is he's going to send out an AI generated picture of the mall to make it look like there are more people out there than there really will be. That you can count on that happening.
yeah, because remember the first inauguration, Sean Spicer came out in that ill-fitting suit. There were more people on the
Right.
mall at the inauguration than ever before. We were like, man, sit down.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And then Melissa McCarthy, oh my gosh, I miss her, but I don't miss
Yeah.
Sean. Anyway, sir, thank you so much for
Great.
your time
Take care
and be
now.
well. Yes, tell everyone I said hello. Be
All
well.
right. Bye-bye.